right. So Steve, you can see my slide well now, right?
Yep, I can see it. So
all right, so we will get started. Steve, you
going
can
to,
go ahead and start recording.
Yep.
Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone. Now it's 8 o'clock. We're going to start today's seminar. So today we will have a very important topic. It's about index investment from a very well established investor, David Moon. I will introduce him shortly. So before that, I just want to, let me see, can go to next slide. How do we go back then? All right, just before we start, I just want to remind people to mute yourself. We have a lot of people, if we don't mute ourselves, or too much background noise, so mute yourself. We will finish the talk first, then we'll have plenty of time to ask questions. That's when you can unmute yourself. And you can also leave your questions in the chat below our screen. My name is David Chen. I think many of you probably know me. I'm a physician, I'm an oncologist. I'm interested in investment and also very interested in sharing my experience in investment. So that's why in 2015, we started a WeChat group called 商业房地产. Then I went to share knowledge about real estate investment in commercial real estate. For the past almost 10 years, we have a lot of discussions. A lot of people share their expertise. And then gradually, this evolved into more formal seminar series, focusing on sharing investment knowledge among Chinese American physicians. We have had many topics, including real estate investment, both residential and commercial. We have a lot of seminars about the trust, asset planning. We talk about the life insurance, tax planning, retirement planning. We have attorneys to talk about how to use LLC to protect ourselves. So a lot of excellent, outstanding speakers from very highly respected professionals, including CPAs, financial advisors, attorneys. Last year, we started a new project to focus on investment education for our younger generation. I think it's very important to educate our next generation to be smart in investment. We have a lot of people traditionally going to, talking about among Chinese American physician group. So a lot of people have our children going to physicians, go to engineers. Both are very good. But I'm hoping though to see more and more our second generation to get into finance, investment, to get into laws, into politics. And actually, before we start the seminar, actually, we had a brief chat with our speaker today about how important to do this so we have more and more voice in our society. And that's probably why I started this seminar series for the young people. So with this, I want to have a disclaimer before we start our seminar today. Number one, our seminar series is charitable in nature. No one have any financial gain in this. It's more to share knowledge for our group, physicians and physician children. These are not any legal official investment advice. So this is only to share the knowledge, give some provoking ideas, but you need to make your own financial decision, talk to your financial advisor, your CPA. So these are not official legal advice. So neither organizers nor speakers can guarantee 100% accuracy of the contents. So this is important to keep in mind. We share knowledge, but we will not be responsible for any, and not legally not responsible for anything. So with that introduction, I have the honor to introduce our speaker today, David Meng. Dr. Meng came to the US in 1988 from China. He received a master's degree in 1990 and then PhD in 1993. Currently, he is a professor and department chair in a very big university. He does teaching and research on biochemical engineering and tissue regeneration. He has won many research grants and has mentored many postdoc fellows and graduate students. And professionally, he has published over 400 peer-reviewed papers. And for those of us who are in the science field, we know that's a huge number, 400 peer-reviewed papers. He and his wife have 3 beautiful children and have successfully growing up children. Very importantly for today, he is also the author of 2 very popular best-selling investment books. One is called The Intelligent Small Investors. Ordinary People Became Millionaires. Another one is 5 million in 8 years, talking about real investment on the side, which many of us can do. And both books are available on Amazon. And I can tell you personally, I have read both books. I personally have bought only one other investment book in my whole life, which is Poor Dad, Rich Dad, many years ago. So David Meng's these 2 books are the only 2 I bought since that on. So these are very good books. I highly recommend people to read it. I bought both, and my both daughters have read both, and they both loved it. So another important character of David is that he is very willing to share. You know, a lot of people they just work hard, make money. They don't share the knowledge. David actually very open to share his knowledge. He, a lot of WeChat groups. He shared his experience, his philosophy in investment, and help a lot of people. So today we will have the honor to hear his perspective from the investment, focusing on fund investment. David, now I'm going to stop my sharing, and floor is all yours. Can you share your slide?
Thank you very much, Dr. Chan. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. So today I will share about some simple methods for investing in index funds. Okay. So there was a king, and he was not very good. He was a greedy king. He collected a lot of rice from his people, and he put them into his royal storage houses. And they are full, but his people are starving. And then the king's daughter got sick, and all the royal doctors couldn't cure her. And then Dr. David Chan came to the king. He said, "Your Highness, I am able to heal your daughter." And Dr. Chan is a martial arts master, so he's not afraid of the king. So the king said, "Yes, please, help my daughter." and Dr. Chan used his secret recipe and was able to heal the daughter. And then the king said, Dr. Chan, what award would you like? I want to give you an award. And Dr. Chan said, thank you, Your Highness. I just need 1 grain of rice on day 1. And then on day 2, please give me 2 grains of rice. Day 3, 4 grains, and day 4, 8 grains, and so on. The number of grains will be double of that of the previous day. And you do it for 100 days, and that will be my reward. And the king said, wow, you are really a humble man. That's a small reward. Sure, let's do that. I'm going to give you that. So his servants started to give Dr. Chan a single grain of rice on day 1 and 2 grains, day 2, and so on. And then by the 45th day, his agricultural chair ran into the king desperately and informed the king, all the rice is gone. All the royal storages are empty. No more rice. And the king was very surprised that it could happen so quickly. It didn't even reach day 100. It's not even halfway through it. So this is how it works. This shows the power of compounding. So on day 45, it will come to 1.8 times 10 to the power of 13 number of grains of rice. And with the average weight of a single grain being 0.03 gram, you would come to 527 and 766 tons of rice. And that was all the rice the king had. And everything was gone. If it would reach 100 days, that would be equivalent to 1.9 times 10 to the power 22 tons of rice. And that's more than the entire earth can produce. So this shows the power of compounding. So the king called Dr. Chan. Dr. Chan, you are very smart. I don't have so much rice. So what are you going to do now? And Dr. Chan said, I just want to teach you a lesson. Be nice to your people. I will give back 10% of your rice back to you so you can feed your family. The other 90%, I'm going to distribute to all the starving people in this country. So Dr. Chan was a good, smart doctor. So regarding compounding, Albert Einstein said that the most powerful force in the universe is compound interest. He also said compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. And the purpose of this lecture or this sharing this evening is to make sure that all of us and our children understand it and earn it instead of pay it. So let's call the annual rate of return in investment being R. And if you put $100 under your mattress or under your pillow or under your sofa, R is 0. And you keep it there for 30 years, you still have 100. Now, if you put $100 in the stock market to earn a return of 10% per year, after 30 years, you would have $1,745 instead of 100. Okay, so the calculation is that the final investment is equal to the initial investment times, in parentheses, 1 plus R to the power of the number of years, R being your return. And as you can see, if your R is 0, then no matter how many years you keep it, you're still gonna have 1. And you will still have the final investment being equal to the initial investment. So the greater the R, the greater your final investment amount. And the greater the number of years, the greater your money will become. So let's say that at age 30, you have $200,000. And that I know can be achieved because I know somebody who's barely 25 and has already more than $200,000 invested in the market. So assume at age 30, you have 200K and you put it into the market. After 40 years, when you are 70, how much will you have? Now, if you put it into CD, and let's assume R is 3%. I know right now it's like 5%. However, a few years ago, it was like 1%. So probably in average, it's around 3%. And you will have $0.6 million when you are at 70 years of age. Now, in contrast, if you put into bonds and earn 5%, you will have $1.4 million. And if you put it into typical mutual funds, hedge funds, the target retirement funds, and you can Google these things, and typically they earn about 6 to 8% a year. So let's assume it's 8%. After 40 years, you will have $4 million. That's much better than bonds and CD, as you can see. And that's why a lot of people use mutual funds. However, if we simply put into an index, SP 500 index fund, which earns 10%, you will have $9 million. And you don't even have to research the thousands of mutual funds and which one is better. You just take the SP 500 index fund, put all your money there. You will have almost $5 million more than the mutual funds. And that is one emphasis of this evening. If you learn that, I would not have wasted your time. You make $5 million more and your life will be simpler than having to research different mutual funds. It's a simple choice. It's a life-changing difference. And as you know, our life is a result of our choices. We choose whom to marry. We choose what school to go to, what profession to enter. And these are all choices that make us who we are. And one simple choice you can make financially that can make you millions of dollars more is the focus of this evening. So what happens if you can make even more than 10%? I mentioned that in the SP 500, you can make 10%. What if you can make 13%? Instead of 9 million, you're gonna have 26 million. And if you can make 15% return, you will have 53 million. So the rate of return makes a huge difference in how much your money can grow. It's the same 200K. We are assuming that you only make one single investment of 200K and you do not add any more money into it anymore. That's it. That's the only total cash you put into it. And yet, if you can make 15% per year for 40 years, you will have 53 million. So the two most important factors in investing are the annual rate of return, the R, and the time. So let's look at the annual rate of return first. Let's say you and Amy are both 30 years of age now. Maybe you are only 20 now, but learn it early and it's beneficial. And we're just gonna assume that you are 30, and you both invest 200K, and you hold it for 40 years until age 70. You make 6%, and Amy makes 12%. At age 70, will your investment be worth half of Amy's? Because your return is half of hers. She makes 12%, you make 6%. So will your investment be worth half of Amy's? You want to take a guess? Make your guess, and then let's look at the next slide. So Amy, 12%, she will have 18 million. You at 6%, you will have only 2.1 million. So it's not half. It's much, much less than half. It's not, I'm sorry, it's not half, yes. It's not, it's only like 1/9. You make an order of magnitude less than Amy, while your rate of return is only half. So it's not a linear relationship. It's a power relationship. Now let's look at time. You and John both invest 200K. You both earn the same annual return of 10%. You hold it for 20 years and sell it. John holds it for 40 years and sell it. Will yours be half of John's? Because he holds it for 40 years, you hold it for 20 years. That is half in terms of time. Will your amount of money be also half? Take your guess before you look at the next slide. John holding for 40 years, he has 9 million. You, 20 years, have only 1.3 million. It's not half. It's much less than half. Okay. And let's say Jen, who lives a long life, holds for 60 years. She will have 16 million. And 60 years is possible. If she has 200K at age of 25, by the time she reaches 85, that's 60 years. She will have 61 million. And a lot of people are going to live that long. Many of you, the young people among us, many of you will live beyond 100 years of age. Life expectancy is increasing. Medical technology and treatments and medicine are being innovated. So if you live to 105 and you know that you have $61 million when you are 85, you will be happy that you have that money. So this shows the power of holding for the long term. Okay, you double from 20 years to 40 years, you don't double your money. You make an 8-fold increase. And you triple from 20 years to 30 years, you don't triple your money. You make a 50-fold increase. Now let's look at SP 500 and QQQ. Okay, so SP 500 consists of the 500 large companies in the US. And QQQ is an index for the technology, the NASDAQ technology stocks, okay? So in this plot, it's from 2014 to 2024, 10 years, okay? So you put $10,000 in 2014, and you don't add any more new money, just one single investment. You hold it for 10 years. And this is the growth. This is when you hold for 20 years. So now you start in 2004 and you end in 2024. So if you put your money into QQQ, $10,000, no further investment, you will have $142,000. Into SP 500, you have $66,000. And this is after a major crash during the 2008 to 2009 Great Recession. This is for 30 years. 1994, 2000. I'm sorry, this is 25 years. 1999. The reason I started at 1999 here is that QQQ became available in 99. It was not available before that. So that's why the data started in 99. 25 years. Two major crashes. One is the dot-com crash from 2000 to 2002. And then the Great Recession, 2008 to 2009. And still, you get very good increases. Now, you may say that looks like QQQ is better than SP500 because it's beating SP500. And yes, it is true, but there can be a decade. For example, from 2001 to maybe 2011 or 12, 10 or 11 years, when you can see the red line was above the blue line. And the red line is for SP500. Okay, so there can be a decade where the SP500 outperformed the QQQ. And yes, it's true that since 2000 and maybe 16 till now, QQQ outperformed SP500. But we can't guarantee the same for the next decade. So it is better that you use both. Here's a table of SP500 returns since 1965. Okay, so in the first row, 1965. So in the first number, 10%, that is a positive 10%. Okay, in parentheses, the next year, 1966, 11.57, that's negative. That means that year the index went down by lost 11.7%. Okay, so you have all these numbers here. This is from 1987 to 2008. As you can see, along the years, there are some major crashes. 2000 was negative, 2001 and 2, 3 years in a row, negative. And 2008 also major negative, 37% loss. But in the end, the compounded average annual gain from 1965 to 2023 was 10.2%. So SP500 earns roughly 10% per year. Okay. Now let's talk about dollar cost averaging. DCA. When you see the word DCA, it's for dollar cost averaging. So here, without dollar cost averaging, you put in your initial $10,000 and then you don't do anything. And this is after 40 years, 1986 to 2026, 1984 to 2024, 40 years, your 10K becomes $0.72 million. This is without adding new money into it. No dollar cost averaging. Okay. Now with dollar cost averaging, you still put in your 10K in 1984. And then every month you add $2,000. Every month, rain or shine, whether it's crashing or it's booming, you add $2,000 to it. And you will have $12 million after 40 years. Okay. If you start this at your age of 22, you graduate and you start right away. By the age of 62, you should have this amount of money. If you start at 25, then you should have this by age 65. If you start at 30, then you should have this by the age of 70. Okay, this is the 40-year time period. 30 years, you have 4.5 million. 20 years, you have 1.9 million. So if you prolong your timeline from 20 to 30 years, you go from 1.9 to 4.5 million. And you add another 10 years, you go from 4.9 to 12.6 million. So to the young people, the earlier you start, the better. Now let's look at less work, more money. That's impossible, right? If you are a student, the harder you work, the harder you study, the better grades you get. If you are an hourly employee, the more you work, the more money you make. However, in investing, I have good news. This is what Buffett said. Money is like a soap bar. The more you touch it, the less you have. You do active trading, you buy and sell and buy and sell, and you are as busy as a bee, you have less money than the guy who sits on his hands and do nothing. So the stock market is designed to transfer money from the active to the patient, from the active person who buys and sells and being very busy to the patient person. Okay, so the stock market transfers wealth from the active to the patient. So let's all try to be the patient one. There's actually a study by Fidelity, and they analyzed their clients' portfolios and found that the best performing portfolios belong to those who hadn't touched their investments. They just leave them there for years and years. And coincidentally, many of those thriving investors were already dead. Some of these people just passed away and they left their accounts with Fidelity. And for years, nothing was done to them. And yet those accounts were among the best performing accounts. Okay, so remember that dead people make the best investors. So if the market crashes, if today it goes down by 3%, by 5%, and you are worried, you are anxious, you want to do something. One way to overcome your anxiousness, your stress, and to remove your stress, to be relaxed, to have peace, to enjoy your life, is to tell yourself that these dead people, they are the best performers in the stock market. So let me pretend that I'm dead. And a dead person won't feel the stress. They won't feel the anxiety. Okay. Now let's compare the SP 500 and the QQQ, because the topic tonight is on index investing. How do these index investing methods compare with the other methods? So you can Google and do a lot of research. You will find that SP 500 beats most mutual funds, most other mutual funds. Okay? So US actually has almost 8,000 mutual funds, managing $24 trillion. And people give all their money to these mutual funds. And the mutual fund company owners and CEOs and bosses and managers, they make a lot of money. And you see them buying mansions, private jets, and yachts. Some of them even buy islands. So these mutual fund companies and the bosses, they make a lot of money from managing the $24 trillion. But is it the right thing to do? Is it the right way to give your money to them? And actually, a majority of these funds actually fail to beat the SP 500 index. The cost of investing in these funds are higher because they charge higher fees. But yet, the low fee SP 500 index fund outperforms them. And in reality, beating the SP 500 is actually very difficult, especially over a long period of time. Just 2% of the large cap mutual funds, hedge funds, beat the SP 500 since 1993. And that is 31 years. So over a 31-year period, only 2% beats the SP 500. The majority underperforms SP 500, yet they charge high fees. So ask yourself, where are you going to put your money? And even if you find that 2%, there's no guarantee that you will continue to beat next year, because that star fund manager who beat SP 500 for 20-some years may retire next year. As soon as you find a company like that and you put your money into that and he retires and they underperforms. So it is safer to just put it into the SP 500 index fund, because that does not require or rely on a star manager. SP 500 beats target retirement funds. The target retirement funds have become very popular nowadays. They manage about $3.5 trillion in 2003. These are funds that target your retirement date, for example, in 2035, 2045, 2055, etc. Okay, but they underperform the SP 500 and they charge higher fees. SP 500 beats most 401k retirement performances. Statistics show that the average return on 401k accounts in the US is about 8% over the past 20 years. And if you are at age 30 and you have 200K, you put into SP 500, by age 70, you will have $9 million. If you are like most Americans and use these mutual funds and you earn 8%, you will have only $4 million. You lost almost $5 million by such a simple choice, something that you can click on your computer, taking only a minute. That minute can make you $5 million more. And that is assuming you only put in 200K once, and you don't add any new money into it. And in reality, you certainly will be adding new money into it every year. So your loss will be even more than 5% if you are like most Americans and use these mutual funds. SP 500 beats the hedge funds too. And Buffett actually made a bet against these hedge funds. He's against the hedge funds. He said, you guys make so much money in your fees, and yet you underperform the SP 500. You buy yachts and you buy islands and you buy your private jets, and you fail your customers. You fail your clients because you underperform the SP 500. So in 2008, he bet $1 million that he could beat a group of hedge funds over 10 years by using an unmanaged, passive SP 500 index fund. And the chart on the right hand shows that the SP 500 index fund, which is the blue bar on the right hand side, it easily beats the other index fund, the other hedge funds. Okay. Now let's compare SP 500 with Trump. Some people say that it takes brains to make millions. It takes Trump to make billions. And Forbes estimated Trump's wealth at 3.5 million in 2017. When he became the president, they publicized his wealth. And it was, as of 2017, he had 3.5 billion. And that's a big number. It also reported that in 1974, his wealth was 200 million. So in 1974, he had 200 million, and he worked hard, and it grew to 3.5 billion. And if you calculate the rate of return, that's 6.9% annually. It actually underperformed the S&P 500. If time could go back, and he dumped that $200 million in 1974 into the S&P 500, he would actually have 15 billion by 2017. Instead of 3.5 billion, he would have 15 billion. And he would not need to do anything. Just dump it into S&P 500 and sit on the beach and do nothing. He would have actually almost $12 billion more. And he works very hard. He claims that he sleeps only 4 hours a day. In his book, you can go and read it. In his books, he said that if I sleep only 4 hours a day and you sleep 10, how can you compete with him? And you can actually compete with him by dumping your money into the S&P 500, and you can sleep 10 hours a day. You can sleep 12 hours a day, and your money will be working for you while in your sleep. Now let's compare S&P 500 with picking individual stocks. I know some people can analyze the companies and pick the right stocks and make a lot of money, but those are in the very small minority. Statistics show that the average person does far worse than the market. The market here meaning the index funds, okay? And most individual stock traders do not succeed. The vast majority of them underperform the S&P 500. So I'm not saying that no one should pick individual stocks to invest. If you have a really strong interest, if you have the passion and the talents and the temperament and the right training, yes, feel free to analyze the companies and pick individual stocks. If you are among the few who can consistently outperform the S&P 500 and the QQQ in the long term, you have my respect. Statistics has shown that in 1 year, many people picking individual stocks may beat the S&P 500 and the QQQ. In 1 year, you may be lucky and you picked a hot stock, and that stock tripled in a year. And you beat the S&P 500, you beat the QQQ. A lot of people do that. However, the next year, it may crash and you underperform. And the year later, that stock may go to zero, like Enron, and you lose all your money. So in 1 year, you win. But if you extend the time scale to 10 years, far less people picking individual stocks can beat the S&P 500 and the QQQ. And if you can pick individual stocks and beat the index over a period of 15 years, you are a big star. Over a 20-year period, only a few people in the entire world who can pick individual stocks and beat the index. And those few people are billionaires. They have the talent, they have the gifts. But those are only a few people in the world. So we have to ask ourselves, are we among those few people in the world? If we are not, we are better off sticking with the index funds. So now, without analyzing companies and picking individual stocks, can you simply use index funds to beat the index funds? Here, I'm showing 3 lines. the SP 500, the yellow line, QQQ, the red line, and the blue line is called TQQQ. It's an index that is triple leveraged. And people who do real estate are very familiar with leverage. You put down $200,000 as a down payment, you buy a house that's worth $1 million. That $800K is a loan from the bank. And that is called a leverage. Okay? So the TQQQ is 3x QQQ, which means 3 times the leverage. 3 times QQQ, 3x leverage. So simply put, when QQQ goes up 1% in a day, TQQQ goes up 3%. And unfortunately, the reverse is also true. If QQQ drops 1%, TQQQ drops 3%. So TQQQ became available in 2009, 2010 or 9. And that's why this curve started. I'm sorry, 2010. That's why this plot started in 2010. That's the first year TQQQ became available. Okay? So from 2010 to 2024, 14 years, 13 years, TQQQ beat the QQQ and SP 500. So that could be one potential method that you can use an index to beat the benchmark. I'm calling QQQ the Nasdaq benchmark and SP 500 the large cap benchmark. UPRO is 3x SP 500. Okay, so is somebody drawing on my slides? I don't mind the drawing, but I don't know if it will bother the other audience. But anyway, so UPRO is 3x SP 500, and again, UPRO became available in 2009. So from 2009 to 2024, UPRO outperformed the benchmarks. And there are 2x funds too. Okay, the 2x of SP 500 is called SSO. So UPRO 3x, SSO 2x. And so SSO beat SP 500. So the 2x beat the 1x, and the 3x beat the 2x. And the same is true for the Nasdaq. The 2x is called QLD. So 2x beats 1x, and 3x beats the 2x. And you may ask, so why doesn't everybody invest in the 3x? You can make so much more money, and they easily beat the benchmarks. So should everybody put all their money into the 3x? The answer is no, because, for example, during the dot-com crash from 2000 to 2003, the UPRO max drawdown, that's the maximum loss or drop, is 91%. And the TQQ max drawdown is 99.9%. So you put $100 there, you only have 10 cents left. And most people won't be able to take it. By the time it's 50% down or 60% down, they would have sold and gotten out. And also, if it reaches 99.9% drawdown, it is possible that the company may have to shut down the fund, or even shut down the entire company. Or maybe the SEC, the government, would have stepped in and forced them to shut down, and you would have lost all your money. Okay, so there's big risk there. So 100% in the leveraged ETFs, such as TQQQ and UPRO, is not recommended. So is there a better way to use them? So one way is shown here. Two curves. So the blue one is 100% UPRO. You have your $1 million. You put your $1 million into UPRO, and this is a curve from for 30 years, I think, from 2004, from 1994 to 2020. Yeah. So, yeah, okay. The purpose here is to show the two major crashes in the last couple of decades. Okay, the dot-com crash and the Great Recession crash. So, if you were able to stomach those big crashes and just sit on your hands and do nothing, you would still come out okay. But these crashes are quite major. The dot-com crash, both you would have gone down over 90% in both cases for the UPRO. In contrast, if you put in 55% of your money into UPRO and the other 45% into 3x leveraged bonds, you would have come out on the top. And the reason is that if you look from in the 1990s, you can see that the red line is actually below the blue line. So in a booming market, it does not go up as much as the blue line, as 100% UPRO. However, during the major crashes, they do not go down as much. And that is why, in the end, they came out on the top. Okay? So 100% is not as good as almost half and half. And the reason is that bonds, that 45% is called a hedge, or you buy insurance. We buy life insurance in case something happens. And if you have a medical clinic, you are a medical doctor, you have a clinic, you have insurance, and maybe you have a $5 million umbrella insurance. Okay, so that hedge is like the insurance. And I'm showing how it works in just for the Great Recession crash. The bottom blue line is 100% UPRO. So, and the y-axis is a log scale. So the drop is actually quite big. Okay, you went from $20,000 to almost maybe only $20, $30. Okay, maybe $200. It's if I remember correctly, the max drawdown is 93% for UPRO in the Great Recession. So you lost 93%. Now, the bonds is the red line. The red line, I can see it actually slightly increased. It did not go down at all. It actually increased. And that's because during a big recession, people run to safety and they consider bonds safe haven. So they dump the stocks and put their money into the bonds. And more people buy the bonds, it goes up. And also, when the Great Recession hit, the Fed started to cut rates like crazy. They have to cut the interest rates to stimulate the economy. And when interest rates are cut, the bonds jump. So, and then you rebalance. You rebalance every quarter, okay? You want to maintain the 55 to 45 ratio. So if the crash happens, instead of 55 UPRO, you now only have 40% UPRO. So that will force you to sell the bonds and buy more UPRO to maintain the 55 to 45 ratio. So when UPRO booms in the 1990s, it becomes 60% and 70%. So you have to sell the UPRO and buy the bonds to maintain 45-55 ratio. So this method basically forces you to sell high and buy low. You are scared when it drops 90%, but this method, the model, forces you that you have to sell the hedge to buy bonds, to buy UPRO in order to maintain 55-45 ratio every quarter. Okay, so that's how the hedge works. So what is an ideal hedge? The ideal hedge has to go up when the stocks go down. At least it should not tank with the stocks. Okay, so here are some examples that can serve as the hedge or the insurance: bonds, gold, even cash. Some people even use S&P 500 as their hedge. So here are some examples: 55% UPRO, 45% bonds, 55 UPRO, 45 gold. GLD is an ETF for gold. 55 UPRO, 45 cash. You can just keep 45% cash. And you may think that, but in the bull market, if I keep 45% in cash, I'm going to lose money because I should be 100% in market in the stocks. But remember, you are using 55% UPRO. UPRO is 3x S&P 500. So 55% times 3, you are already 165% in stocks. So you are more than 100% in stocks already. Okay, so you can afford to have 45% in cash and still outperform the 100% stock market in the bull market. Okay, and some people like to use 30% UPRO plus 70% VOO. VOO is S&P 500. Rebalance quarterly, once a quarter, 4 times a year, takes only minutes. But these are long-term strategies. Okay, they beat the benchmarks. They beat pretty much all the mutual funds and hedge funds. If you are short-term, don't touch them. Don't touch UPRO and TQQQ if you are short-term. If you are emotional, don't touch them. It's for someone with ice water in their veins, someone who's highly disciplined with will of steel. Here are some examples of using these methods. The green line is S&P 500. That's the benchmark. That's the line most mutual funds and hedge funds underperform. Okay, that is already a good green line to start with. And then you use 80% SSO, that's 2x. Okay, 20% TMF, that's triple long-term bonds. And or you can use 100% SSO. SSO is 2x, so it will never go to 0, unlike the 3x. So it is okay if you want simply to use SSO and do DCA. And then you have 100% UPRO. In this case, UPRO outperformed all the others. But that's because it started in 2009. Since 2009, we have not had a major crash like the Great Recession, like the .com. Okay. So here are some other examples. So UPRO plus a few examples of hedges rebalanced quarterly can outperform the S&P 500. And here I'm using an example of UPRO with 45% cash. And that also readily outperforms the S&P 500. If you want to look at the colors of the curves, they are all shown at the bottom of the figure. Okay, the green is S&P 500, the blue is 55 UPRO, 45 TMF, and the middle two are almost the same. One is for 55 UPRO, 45 cash, 30% UPRO, 70% S&P 500. Okay, so now let's look at what to avoid in investing. And that's a saying that tell me where I'm going to die, so I never go there. So knowing what not to do is perhaps even more important than knowing what to do. So what pitfalls to avoid in investing? First, avoid investing based on predicting the future. The truth is that the stock market is never obvious. It is designed to fool most of the people most of the time. So don't try to predict the future and base your investing. You bet your money on predicting the future, you're going to lose your money. And there are all kinds of examples that you can find, okay? Just ask yourself, in 2001, 9/11 happened. But on the day of September 10th, did anyone predict that the next day we're going to have 9/11? No one can predict that. In January 1st, 2020, we were celebrating the New Year. My wife and I were on a cruise ship. Did anybody predict that COVID is going to hit the world? No. And I can go on and on, but don't bet on predicting the future, and also avoid trying to time the market. And there are many examples that show, and statistics that show people who try to time the market usually make less money than those who hold it for the long term. Okay? Remember the saying that money is like the soap bar. You touch it often and it becomes smaller and smaller. Okay, the stock market is designed to transfer wealth from the active to the patient, and also avoid sitting on the cash and waiting for the crash. You want to invest, but you want to wait for the crash. When the crash happens, then you will invest, and you wait and wait and wait, and you lost all these opportunities. The market doubles and you are still waiting. And this guy is called Peter Lynch. He is one of the best investors of all time. Okay, he said far more money has been lost by investors preparing for corrections or trying to anticipate corrections than has been lost in corrections themselves. So when you have some money, just dump into the index funds. That's called dollar cost averaging. This month, you have some extra money, put into the market. Next month, you have some put into the market. Don't even look at the price. Don't wait, sit on cash and wait for a crash. Avoid investing based on emotion. Emotion is perhaps the biggest enemy in investing. A lot of people will tell you that. Stick to a proven and tested model, then be mechanical. Act like a robot. And robots actually make better investors. Remember that the dead people are the better investors. Think long-term, ignore the short-term gyrations. Oh my God, today it dropped 3%, and yesterday it dropped another 2%. Is the sky falling? Should I sell and bail and go into cash? Just ignore. And also ignore noises, the news reports, the predictions, the analyses. Your neighbor, unless your neighbor is a successful investor and a multimillionaire, listen to the people who have done it and don't listen to people who have not done it. If you want to invest in real estate, listen to Dr. Zhou and Dr. Chen. They have done it. Those who have not done it, they may be scared of some of these investments. And they don't have the experience. So consider all these things noise. The people who are writing articles, publishing articles in the news, analyzing and predicting this and that, they really don't know much. They don't know, it's their duty, it's their job to write articles. Okay, don't pay too much attention to them. Okay, concluding remarks. I'm almost done, okay? So the first word of this sharing is simple. So why index investing? They beat the most mutual funds and hedge funds. They beat most stock pickers and day traders. And lastly, they are simple. Einstein had this 5 levels of intelligence. The first, smart. Number 2, intelligent. Number 3, brilliant. Number 4, genius. And the highest is simple. So simple is actually, there's a lot of intelligence in being simple. And we all know his formula, E equals to mc squared. That's really simple, but that's genius too. Da Vinci has said that, has a saying that goes like this: simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. In Chinese, and if you don't know Chinese, that's okay. Ask your parents or ask your friend who know Chinese. 大道至简. It pretty much is the same thing. We also say 不怕千招会，就怕一招精，一招鲜吃遍天. They all say the same thing, okay? Simplicity. Simple is the highest level of sophistication. So to keep it simple, here's my summary. For most people, for your 401k, let's put 100% into SP 500. Everything into SP 500. Don't do these target funds. You make less money and you pay higher fees. You are making contributions to their private jets, to their yachts, to their mansions. And don't do that. Keep your money in your family. Just use SP 500. I have 100% of my 401k in SP 500, and the fee is 0.04%. Okay, you pay 1%, 0.5% to the fund managers, and they make less money for you. They lose money for you, and they charge high fees. So leave them. Use SP 500. And if you have extra money to invest for your non-retirement accounts, just put 100% into QQQ. DCA like a robot, no emotion, okay? So in that way, you cover both the SP 500 and the QQQ. They are simple, easy, and you spend little time. You don't have to analyze the companies. You don't have to do a lot of research and monitor the market and read all the news. So you have time. You can enjoy life. You can enjoy a family. You become an armchair multimillionaire. Beat most mutual funds, hedge funds, stressful day traders, and busy individual stock pickers. Now, for someone who wants to take on more risk and who can stomach more volatility and have a will of steel, and below are some examples. So 55% UPRO plus 45% hedge. The hedge can be bonds, gold, cash, etc. Okay? Or 30% UPRO, 70% VOO. VOO is SP 500. Or 80% SSO and 20% hedge. Okay, etc. Rebalance quarterly. That forces you to sell high and buy low. Takes only minutes, DCA like a robot. Ignore short-term volatility. Keep doing it long-term. If you can do this for 20 to 40 years, you will be a crazy rich Asian. And this is all I have. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Meng. What a beautiful summary for index investment. This is the best summary I have ever heard for investment in index. Thank you so much for making me look young and handsome in the beginning of your talk. So now we're open for questions. So anyone who have questions, please unmute yourself. You can ask questions. So let me start with one question from the chat. See, I'm convinced that index fund is the way to go, but how to buy SP 500 QQ UPRO? This is this is the more technical question. If you can summarize very quickly.
Sure. So for your 401k, your provider, different companies use different providers, but they usually give you maybe half a dozen choices. And one of them is usually an S&P 500 index fund. It may be called a different name, but for example, I think Vanguard calls it an institutional index, and Fidelity may call it another name. Vanguard may call it a different name. But a typical 401k account provider would have one of the funds being SP 500, and just use that one. Don't just ignore all the other funds. Typically, in the 401k account, they do not have QQQ. So for your extra money, and if you want to buy QQQ, you can open an account with these brokerage accounts, Fidelity, Vanguard. There are some other too. There's TD Ameritrade. So you open an account, you connect your account with your bank account. They transfer money to your Fidelity account, for example, and then you type in QQQ, and then you can buy. You can buy how many shares you like. Okay. UPRO, the same thing. You type in UPRO, and it will allow you to buy these shares.
Hey, David, Jingzhou, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Can you comment on the mutual fund versus the ETF, whether SP 500 ETF versus a mutual fund, something similar?
So a mutual fund typically can be buy and sold after the 4 p.m. close of the market. So you can buy, say, 100 shares of a mutual fund, and that purchase will be executed at 4 p.m. when the market closes, and they have the price for the mutual fund. ETF, on the other hand, can be purchased any minute during the day when the market is open. So an ETF, if you want to buy and sell an ETF, you can do it at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 p.m., or 4 p.m. While a mutual fund is only executed at the 4 p.m. Market close. They are similar as well. Performance-wise, there's not much difference if you use an SP 500 mutual fund or an SP 500 ETF fund.
Tax saving?
ETF and mutual fund do not make a difference in tax savings. Tax savings is determined by if it's a 401k or a non-retirement fund or an RRA. If you buy in an RRA, your money has tax benefits, or Roth IRA, which you do not have tax deductions right now, but when you take it out later, you don't have to pay taxes on the growth. So those are determined by the types of your account, not by whether it's a mutual fund or an ETF.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's great. Enjoy your talk. It's very valuable. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Hey, David, 我能问2个问题吗？
Of course.
Dr. Mong's very good lecture, but anyway, question is about your strategy here with 50% of UPRO and plus a certain percentage hedge. On your slides, you have 3 lists. One is 50% UPRO plus 45% hedge, and next one is 30% UPRO plus 70% VOO, and number 3 is 80% SSO plus 20% hedge. My question is that among those 3, do you have a feeling one is better than the other?
Okay, good question. So let me start with the last one, 30% UPRO plus 70% VOO. Why only 30% UPRO? Because research has shown that if you want to use leverage, usually around 160%-ish is the best, the optimum. If your leverage is too high, it doesn't do as well. So 160%-ish is the best. So that's why the 55%. 55 times 3 is 165%. But why does the last one use 30%? That's because 30% times 3 is already 90. And plus 70% is SP5. VO is SP500. That's also equity. So 30% times 3 plus 70, that's 160%. Okay.
David,
And regarding which one is the best, it's hard to say, because when the Fed increases interest rates, bonds will tank, bonds will go down, and stocks will go down. So the first one is only good when the Fed is not hiking rates, when inflation is low. In high inflation times, the first one behaves poorly. So it's possible that you can combine them. I had a line that says all a mixture thereof. You can mix. If you don't have to use 45% of the same thing, you can use 15% of this and 15% of that and 50% of third something. Okay.
Okay.
David,
Great.
question.
The second question is that, for these people who will retire, for example, in next 10 years, do you suggest we do something different, or we still follow the exactly same strategy you mentioned here?
10 years, I think, to be safe, I would keep the majority of my funds in SP500 and maybe also QQQ, and maybe use a small portion in the leveraged funds, but only a small portion. The reason is that if we can look at some of the curves. So let's look at this. Let's say that you are smart, so you don't use 100% U-Pro. You use the red curve. But even with the red curve, and let's say right now it's 1990. You're gonna retire in 10 years. And then you get a major crash. You still have quite a maximum drawdown. This maximum drawdown here is 67%. So even the red line during the dot-com crash went down by 67%. And you have to retire then. You may have to delay your retirement. So I wouldn't put too much money into it if you're going to retire in 10 years. Or if you need the money in 10 years. Maybe you will retire in 10 years, but this is money you do not need. You already have enough money saved for your retirement. This is, maybe you have $5 million and you already have 3 million in safe places that you can live on for a long time. That 2 million that you don't need, that you're going to give it to your kids, and you're going to live to 80. You may have 30 more years left. And that you can try if you want, if you have the stomach, these leveraged methods. Okay?
Okay,
David,
got you. Very good answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
David, to follow up on that question, so how many years left in the investment would you say, okay, it's okay to do the leveraged investment? Say,
Yeah.
15 or 20 or more than 20, or what do you recommend?
I would prefer 20 years. Yeah, 20
Okay.
years left, give it a try. And if the market becomes crazy and you triple your money, you quadruple your money in a few years, probably get out and not get, or deleverage. You can always deleverage. For example, it's 1985. and you have 15 more years to retire. And you in 1985 use the leveraged method, and your money you get 10x in your investment, and the market was going up like crazy. And you have more than enough money. You know, your $1 million became 10 million or 15 million due to the 3x method. You can always deleverage. You could say that, you know, I'm not going to do 55% anymore. Let me do 45%, and let me do 35%. You can deleverage and put more and more money into the 1x. Okay.
One question.
Because if it goes up by 10x or 15x, quite likely a major crash may be, you know, on the way. It may be becoming a kind of a bubble. So if it's booming for a decade or two, be on the lookout. Typically, they boom for a couple of decades, and then there's another decade. If you look at the curve here, from year 2000 to 2010, you pretty much have lost decade here. That's a decade it went nowhere, didn't go up at all for a decade. But from 1980, 82 to year 2000, you had 2 decades of boom. If you look at the history, usually, you know, they boom for 2 decades, then a bust decade, a lost decade, and another 2 decades of boom, another lost decade. So we have already boomed for over a decade. We may have some time left, but if it reaches a booming of 2 decades, I would be quite wary and be on the lookout. Okay.
So you mentioned earlier that outside of 401k, if you have extra money, you would put into QQQ.
Most people should do that. Yes.
So you have more faith in QQQ than SP500 for long term. For the
well, it's for as I mentioned, there is a decade. Sometimes it's a decade one outperforms, then there's another decade the other one performs outperforms. So we already had a decade where the QQQ outperformed. It's not that I predict QQQ is gonna outperform the SP500. It's to diversify because you already have your 401k in SP500.
I see.
So your non-retirement, if you put into QQQ, then you have both.
Got it. So another audience asks you to comment on Russell 2000 and Russell 3000 index.
I have never tried those. Those include small companies. So they have, I think in the past they have underperformed. Some people seem to think that maybe in the future years they will outperform, but I have never tried them, so I don't have the knowledge or expertise to comment on them.
Yeah, me either. I never look into that one. It's just more diverse. So I never look into that either. And someone else asked you to comment if you prefer UPRO than SPXL.
I have not tried. Is SPXL 3X SP500?
Yeah.
Okay. I think they are quite similar. Yeah. By the way, if you want to buy QQQ, there's a new fund that's called QQQM. It's the same thing, but the fee is even a little smaller than QQQ. So you may want to try QQQM. But in general, they are quite similar. These are called fine tunes, only very small differences.
So the different, so back to SP500, look at different companies or platform. They all offer SP500. I guess the fee may be a little bit different from company to company. Do you have any? Do you know which one?
Typically of the order of 0.04%.
0.04.
VOO, which is an ETF, I believe it's 0.02%, or maybe 0.03.
0.03, yeah.
Yeah, but
0.03.
Yeah, those are very small, negligible charges compared to the regular mutual funds.
Any other people, other questions? So one question is, what is your attitude towards ameliorating risks by using total US stock market, total international stock market, total bond market compared to SP 500?
I have not looked into the total markets, but if you can always Google their performance, let's say, compare their performance in the past 20 years. And you can make your decision. Past 5 years, past 10 years, maybe not long term enough, but look for 20 years when they are if available. Compare them and then make your researched decision to see which is better.
Thanks a lot, David Mun, and that's great talk.
Thank you.
Do you have any comments on people retire soon? Do you have any suggestion for them?
Actually, there's a
Like
chapter. Yes, there's a chapter in my book. Yeah, that's on retirement. So my thinking is 2 years of living expenses in cash or cash equivalents, such as CD, short-term bonds, 2%, 2 years of living expenses in cash, everything else in SP 500.
That's like an emergency fund, right? You have
2 years should be enough. Everything else in SP 500, I wouldn't follow these target retirement methods, target retirement funds, where if you are going to retire in 2 years, you probably will have the vast majority of your money in bonds and only a small amount in stocks. Their performance will be too low. I would still stick with 100% SP 500. I will only just leave a couple years of cash. Maybe if you want to be even safer, do 3 years of cash and the rest in SP 500. And in my chapter, I actually calculated all the returns. You will have so much more money with 100% in SP 500 than all these retirement methods. You will have millions and millions more. And the longer you live, the more money you will have. You will never run out of money. Your money increases with your longevity, not decreases.
Thanks a lot.
Another question, I think it probably represents a lot of audience here. They may be asking the same. I have some target fund in 401k. Is that the right time to sell to change to index fund now? I think other people
so in general, it's the right decision to not use the target funds, to just use SP 500. That's the research conclusion based on return and fees. When you do it, if this is the right time, I cannot tell you, because as I mentioned earlier, it's very difficult to time the market. I can't predict. I don't try to time, or I don't try to predict, because if I tell you yes, go ahead, and then tomorrow you put everything into your SP 500, and then a major crash comes, and then you will hate me. So if you want, it will be your decision when to do it and how to do it. You can do it as a lump sum, sell everything and put into SP 500 in one day, or you can use, something like the DCA. You do it
Recording in progress.
And now it's not 55, 45 anymore. Now it's 60 and 40. So you sell the 5% extra in UPRO and you dump that into your hedge to maintain 55, 45.
I see.
So
you
yeah,
want
this is.
我问一下哈，如果这样子的话 in and out the tax consequence 呢？
Yeah, so for long-term investors, you sell those, you can do first in, first out. So you sell those that are more than a year old. And you pay only long-term gains. Long-term gains are at a much lower tax bracket than short-term. And
那我在想，对不
if
起
you have RRA or loss RRA, you don't have to pay taxes when you buy and sell.
Yeah, retirement account doesn't matter. If regular investment account 就比较厉害。那像比如说像这医生群体的话，我想税收几乎都是 probably up to the tax bracket.
So
那小孩子是
long-term
没少。
tax, yeah. So make sure it's long-term tax gain. Long-term should be only 20%.
You mentioned about the 3 times bond. What is the symbol for that? Is it available at Fidelity?
I think so. Yeah, I have the symbol in my talk. It's called TMF. Just remember that TMF is not good in high inflation time periods. When the Fed increases rates, it will drop. But when the Fed cuts rates, it should go up.
So a lot of good questions. I think there's some simple message we can all get is the index fund beat a lot of hedge fund. So you can go with SP 500 or QQ. Those are simple ones. There are also a little bit more complicated, like how to use leverage one. I think for a lot of young people in the group, I think I'll learn some simple message first. If you can have more time to study, use leverage, I think you can look into that. I think maybe we can ask Dr. Meng come back to give another lecture in the future to focus on leveraged fund. How do we do it? So I see a lot of questions. Sorry, we cannot answer all of those. It's getting late, but I think maybe we can come back in the future, ask Dr. Meng to specifically address about this leverage fund. I think that'd be an interesting one to many people. All right. With this, I'd like to thank Dr. Meng. Thank you so much for this. Is a wonderful discussion. I think we learned a lot. I learned a lot myself, and I really appreciate your time. And hopefully we can get you back for another lecture in the future. Everyone,
thank you, Dr. Chang.
Thank
you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah. Take care. Bye-bye.
Recording stopped.